Hello, beautiful people. How's it going, everybody? The two 80s are in the house today.
Adrian and Adrian.
Yeah, I'm joined here by Coach 80 for a very interesting session. We were chatting a little bit before this, and I think some super value is going to come out this. We're talking about intuitive eating and mindful eating, and getting in touch with thoughts around food, and different messaging, and kind of how we can maximize this for long-term outcomes. Essentially, that's what we are here for. So swipe in and let us know who is all here. Adi, thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited. I must say this is a topic that is very close to my heart. It's something that I have struggled with. It's something that I know many people struggle with because the concept seems so foreign when food is so influenced, and our cravings and our desires to eat are so influenced by our emotions, our social settings, our environment, that often our cues are very warped, our hunger cues. They're very influenced from factors that should not be influencing our hunger cues. And I think, this is obviously leading to a problem with people being very uncomfortable in their bodies, because you're not eating what you need. You're not eating what your body is looking for. So, I think that this is sort of where the term disordered eating stems from, is from that lack of intuition and that lack of self-awareness and mindfulness around food. So I'm really excited to share my knowledge, hear a little bit from our Jeffers, and just find out about their experiences, answer some questions, and chat to you. Yeah.
Lovely. And you mentioned there sort of your knowledge and history, which we're quite blessed to have you as part of our team. Give us a little background into Coach 80, where you've come from, a little bit of who and what you are.
Sure. Okay, so I started as a personal trainer a couple of years ago, and that's sort of where my interest in nutrition and the movement came from. I then studied psychology, and I'm currently a registered counsellor with the HBCSA. And sort of combining the two, I found an interest in working with disordered eating and body image pathologies. Prior to joining Jeff, I was working a lot with clients who'd sort of come out of eating disorder rehabs and clinics. And, they go into these clinics or they go into these programs, and they are just like told what to eat, and they are given these like rigid plans, and they need to hit their weight. And there's very little opportunity for them to establish, what they need. It's all, or what they want, or what their body needs. It's all about hitting that goal weight, and there's very little mindfulness or intuition around, because of course they're disordered, not disordered as humans, but they've got disordered relationships with food. So there's very little self-awareness around, am I hungry? Like, what am I even feeling right now? It's just eat at this time, you have to eat this meal, and you have to reach this weight. So they come out of these places and they are just like, now what? Like, what do I eat for lunch? What do I eat for breakfast? Like, I've been told what to eat because I've been trying to like gain or lose or reach a point. But how do I just function in this everyday world? Yeah. And so this is basically what I've been doing, helping these people establish their lifestyle that works for them, and empower them to find lifestyles in the long run, based on mindfulness and intuitive eating. And it's been absolutely amazing. And then I joined Jeff because I felt that Jeff was just a broader platform to do exactly what I was doing, but with sort of a different scope of human, but in the same field of empowering them to find their sort of orderly relationship with food and their body and movement. So yeah,
I think there's such powerful kind of imagery across that, and how we can translate it from perhaps an extreme view into how it affects all of us on a day-to-day basis. And you touched on kind of how we've created an environment that we find ourselves in, for all sorts of reasons that we'll get into. And for anyone who's trying to change status quo, it means making a change to that environment. And these are the tools that, we're trying to teach people. And I think at the heart of a lot of it is this mindful and intuitive eating. So if you had to define it, like, what exactly is intuitive eating?
Okay, so let's just bring it back to mindfulness. Mindfulness is all about consciousness. So when you're focusing on being mindful about something, you're focusing on your awareness of the present moment. So you need to acknowledge your feelings. You need to acknowledge your thoughts, your bodily sensations. And this is a technique that we use in a therapeutic way to allow somebody to encourage somebody and empower somebody to be conscious of the present. Now, tying this into food, it's being conscious about what your body needs. So mindful about, what am I experiencing right now? Is this physical hunger, or is this emotional hunger? Am I eating because I'm stressed? Am I eating because I'm alone and food reminds me of amazing social situations where I'm out at restaurants with my friends? Or is this actual hunger?
I did I've filmed a couple of series on this. One of it, I think there'll be a few challenge peeps in the house, but kind of differentiating hunger from appetite. Where one is physiology, and it's your body telling you that it's in an energy deficit and you need to give it more food. But the other one is the one that we've overridden with by just the things that you mentioned, like habit, culture, the time of day, all those sorts of things. And we reinforce that over and over without actually being in the moment and thinking about what those 100%. Internal cues are.
That's actually the problem, Adrian, is that food becomes something that, if you look at what food does to your brain on a physical level, it releases certain chemicals in your pleasure reward center. So naturally, when we're looking for pleasure and we're seeking pleasure, we're turning to food. And that's, trying to feed that emotional emptiness or, reward ourselves in order to feel emotionally fulfilled, but completely ignoring any physical hunger. It overrides that, unfortunately. Our minds are very powerful and often a lot more powerful than our physical beings, and it does override it. So it's something that we really have to unlearn and then relearn. And it's hard work. It doesn't just happen. You're not just going to, follow a diet, which is exactly sort of the opposite of intuitive eating, and then think that you can eat mindfully. That's not how it works.
Yeah. So where would someone start?
Where would someone start? So, the term consciousness and awareness being used interchangeably here, it boils down to self-awareness, Adrian. I think, how well do you know yourself? What's going on an emotional level, on a mental level? What's going on a physical sensation level? And it's so difficult to actually distinguish between those two. And it needs to start on a journey to self-awareness. So by incorporating movement, we're becoming aware of our body. When you start training, think about how difficult it is. And I'm sure our clients can agree, you're watching a screen, you're watching someone train, there's no mirror in front of you. And you're trying to mimic this movement that the person in front of you is doing, but you don't know if you're doing it right. You've just started, you can't see yourself. And that actually boils down to a lack of physical awareness. But slowly, the more we exercise and the more confident we get with, okay, this person's putting their left arm up, you can't see me eye mask, now we're moving, the more you do it and the more you sort of get more confident with moving your body sort of the way that you're intending to, the more awareness you build over your physical being. So that, like, incorporating movement into your life is step one in getting to know your body. Obviously, yoga takes that to an extreme because that is a mindfulness practice. But I'm not a yogi, never have been, never will be. And training the way that I train, which is similar to the way that we train our clients on Jeff, you are building equal mindfulness, moving that muscle, doing a bicep curl, you are having to use your mind-muscle connection to engage that bicep and actually get that movement in. So Step one, get moving. That is the first step to understanding your body and to creating a physical awareness.
I love that, and it is a whole process where we at the heart of our actions and our habits is a decision that we've made, and some of them become inadvertent because we practice them for so long and it just kind of happens. But we're still making a decision, and it's first being aware that you are doing that. Whether that decision is movement or it's what you're deciding to eat or how you're eating, which is as important as well. And all of that just means that's where you got to start right at the beginning, being conscious of the space that you're in.
Exactly. So step one is being aware of the space that you're occupying physically, being aware of the way your body's moving physically, being aware of the way you're feeling physically. Am I stiff? Am I sore? Like, what's really going on? You know, often people will feel a pain and they won't even be able to show you where it is. It's like my back's sore, but where? My back. That is step one. Step two, the hardest part, is emotional awareness. And I say it's the hardest part because we often use coping mechanisms such as food to block out things that are very, very difficult to feel. And in order to develop that emotional awareness and that self-awareness, we need to sort of develop the coping tools and the coping mechanisms to actually explore those thoughts and feelings without having a complete breakdown. Now, the reason that we use food to mask these is because it's a very easy way of coping. You know, we preempt or we feel an emotion that we're scared of. We eliminate the emotion by creating this complete void, and we led to this feeling of emptiness. Now, this is emotional emptiness, but we mistake it for physical emptiness. So what do we think? We think we need to eat. But because we don't need to fill ourselves on a physical level, we need to fill ourselves on an emotional level. We never really feel full, which is why we just continue to eat and eat and never really reach that level of satiety, because we actually need to fill ourselves up emotionally because we've created this emotional void by being a little bit too scared or a little bit too fearful or knowing we don't have those coping mechanisms to deal with what we're experiencing on an emotional and mental level.
Yeah. There's what comes to mind when you speak to that a little way as well is kind of appreciating the food for itself as well, which will go to a certain amount of kind of providing more sustenance from the meal. So actually tasting it, actually spending some time in it, and that will fill your cup. And hopefully go some way to it not just being about, you know, I need to be comfortable, I need to be full, or it's actually, there's an experience involved in it.
Absolutely. When it comes to the eating side of it, you know, we've spoken about like the physical being, which leads you to, you know, needing to be aware of your emotions. And then it's actually being in that moment and being present with your food and allowing yourself to acknowledge, what is this doing for me? Where is this going? What is it sustaining? What is it nourishing? And, you know, being present in that moment of eating, which so often we don't do. You know, we'll make ourselves a quick plate of food and sit in front of the TV, and next thing we look down and our plate's finished. Or we'll need to rush somewhere, make ourselves a little bowl of food, jump into the car, be eating. Next thing we get there, the food's finished. We haven't even acknowledged what we've eaten.
Exactly. It just kind of happens without us being aware of it. And there are a couple, I mean, you know, giving a couple tools people can kind of think about, but journaling and reflecting on things is one way to kind of start to think about, you know, where you are emotionally with it, where you are in terms of your habits and your behaviors. Yesterday on our Nutrition Foundations challenge, I said everyone an extended overnight fast as the challenge. Not because there's any magic to fasting, but it was more about listening to what hunger's actually like. See how far you can go about food and how you think about food and how your day starts to revolve around it. It had nothing to do with, you know, any of the nonsense around fasting as such, but it was more about giving your body the opportunity. So for people watching here, practice those kinds of things. Like, think about it a little bit. Put yourself in an environment where you're thinking about your emotions. You think about how you're eating, when you're eating, why you're eating. And if you need to keep a little record of it, a little journal, a reflection at the end of it, you know, it can only help.
You know what I'm yeah.
Yeah.
No, what I'm taking away from what you've just said is that there's this big element of trusting yourself with, acknowledging what you're experiencing. We so often are told what we're experiencing or told what to do, and it again takes us away from that moment. It's like, am I enjoying this? Is it doing something for me? Am I full? What's actually going on here? And trusting yourself when you are deciphering what really is happening in that moment.
And that's hard, isn't it?
It's very hard. We make so many mistakes in our lives. We really do. Like, we all do that. And every time we do something like that, we do lose trust in ourselves. Every time we don't follow the diet, every time we make a commitment to something that we don't follow through with, we start doubting whether we're trustworthy.
Yeah. I think some of it's being okay with it, like being okay with making a mistake, getting it wrong. As John always says, bumping your head, that's fine. Like, let it happen, because we learn from it, but we need the right spin on it. And one of the things we haven't kind of brought up the topic of, but is guilt, because guilt is so entwined with what we eat, and when we're not eating what we think we should be doing, or what the plan that we're on says. Like, we've got to have a better coping mechanism than to think, well, now I've blown it all, because there are also other reasons to eat than just what's maybe on a meal plan.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to see, there were a couple comments that came in, which is great, guys, and keep sending them through. Liesl O'Shea says mindfulness for her is pausing, which I love. Just a little one-liner, just to stop and think.
Liesl, what do you do in that moment? When you take that pause, is it stepping back from like the rush around you and just allowing yourself to have that introspective moment? Or what happens to you when you pause? If you can elaborate, because I think that's really important, taking that moment to just like decompress. And I'd love to hear a little bit more, if you can.
I'll keep an eye out for a comment back from Claire says she consciously reminds herself that so when she's hungry, she drinks water first and engages where her hunger is, because it definitely helps. And a comment I've made a couple of times is how unwise our body can be because what we've taught it, and we often get thirst and hunger mixed up. We're not very sensitive to those messages. So it's
again, our minds also override our bodies sometimes. So. But I like the fact that in your comment, you included the word conscious. The comment started with that. And I think that again, brings us back to the fact that you, like Liesl, are taking that moment to have some introspection instead of just like getting caught up in the rush of what's going on around you. Again, bringing it back to self-awareness.
Totally. Lisa says she eats when she's frustrated. So she's highlighted what that issue is, which is great. That awareness is there. It helps to calm me, but only temporarily.
And then what happens afterwards? So Adrian was just talking about guilt. And often when we eat, because of emotional hunger cues, it's followed by guilt, because unfortunately we just do that to ourselves because we can be really mean to ourselves. But, as Adrian said, it's awesome that you can identify what your trigger is and what's causing you to eat. And it's so important that you dig into that. So like, why am I frustrated? What's going on here? How can I cope with this? And how can I really experience my frustration rather than needing to numb it with food?
Totally. And you're going to go around in circles until that kind of happens. So we've all got triggers. We've all got our weak points, and whatever gets us to however we are unhappy with our nutritional journey. But you've got to start with the diagnosis, and that is, well, what is it? Is it frustration? Is it sadness? Is it happiness? Is it whatever it is? And once you kind of get that, it's in, all right, well, now let's look at some tools around it so that food doesn't become the solution, because there are any number of other solutions that we want it just not to be food.
That's the thing. How can I cope with this frustration in a healthy way?
Yeah.
Do I need to express my emotion to whoever it is that's frustrated me?
Shirley says a food journal is such a good way to be more aware of what you're putting in your mouth. It is, because you journal it. And what's nice is you can kind of journal not just what you're eating, but maybe how, where, why, all of those sorts of things, which often are as important as what you've actually put in your mouth.
Absolutely. Where have I been and why do I feel like eating this? Where am I going? What am I experiencing right now? Where am I? And looking at that and seeing if there's a pattern in what you're eating and how much you're eating in accordance with what you've experienced or intend to experience that day. So unbelievably helpful. Yeah.
So taking it, a bit into the mindful side and the hunger bit of it, is this hunger game that I often play with some clients, and part of the journaling experience of eating, but not writing down what you eat, but using a number scale to say how hungry you are when you start eating and how full you are when you finish, so that you can start to kind of practice listening to those cues a little bit. Like, am I actually hungry? I'm asking myself, I'm giving it a rating. And then at the end of it, how do I feel? We've got this kind of mantra of trying to eat to 80% full as a good, like, overriding theme. But you've got to practice it. It doesn't just happen.
So hard to know your portion sizes these days. Like, we dished up plates of food at restaurants. We told what portion sizes to eat on packaging. We get takeaway meals, and all these instant ways of gratifying our hunger needs are so prescriptive that we are almost like, following our hunger cues has almost become null and void. Like, we don't need to. We get given a plate of food and we can finish it. We get given a bag of chips and we can finish it. But again, where are you actually engaging with what you need in that moment?
Yeah, exactly. And it starts, the thought that came to me as you were saying that, it starts when we're young as well. So for any parents kind of watching this, one of the messages that we're quite strict on at home is, you don't have to finish your plate. Like, you eat as much as you want. I saw this brilliant documentary in Japan, and the kindergartens, they all had a nutrition specialist at the school who would design their meals and menus for them, whatever. But they wheeled it into the classroom, and the kids would go get a plate. They'd go up and they'd dish themselves up. It wasn't someone dishing up for them. So they'd say, cool. But they created a culture of you dish up how much you want to eat. It's practiced, it's learned. So I think it's a good thing to kind of do at home. The kids would go back to their desk, and for the first 10 minutes of their lunch break, they'd sit on their own with their bowl in front of them, just eating, being with themselves and with their food. And then after that, it was the sort of social side of eating. And I thought it was just such a nice way to kind of think about the different elements of having control of your own food, then thinking about what's on your plate, appreciating it a little bit, and then you can have the sort of the enjoyment side of it as well. But breaking it down just as a nice kind of story behind it.
Yeah. If we were taught things like that as children, I think that a lot of disordered eating patterns or patterns of disordered eating would be so eliminated. So often we'll dish our kids up a plate of food, and say to them, okay, at the end of this plate of food, you can have your dessert, but you have to finish all your food. That immediately says to them, if I eat all the food, I get rewarded. Later on in life, you're not feeling so great. You're feeling a bit shitty you're not feeling too great about yourself. You think, if I finish all this food, I will get rewarded. And then you just sit and eat, because you're hoping that at the end of this, a reward's going to be.
And you've compounded that because the reward is food as well. Which is something, that's inherent in all of us. That's how we kind of see a lot of things. And one of the things we try to break through, particularly with, our coaching and things, is never to see food as a reward. You reward yourself with another outcome, with, something. And it also takes me a little bit to the concept of like cheat days and, clean eating and all these things where it's like all or nothing. But it's not that. Food isn't inherently good or bad. It's our behavior and our habits and our choices around it in the bigger picture that are important. Yeah.
I'm so anti the word cheat day. Even the word off day on our plans can be damaging. You're not off your plan, you're on your plan. It's a choice day. So you're allowed to make different choices. You can make different choices, but according to your goals and according to your needs. So, the whole concept of cheating and using that word with food doesn't have a moral value. You're not cheating anyone. You're not a bad person. There's nothing wrong with you. You're doing nothing wrong. This is a recipe for a disaster, terming bad eating cheat days. Like that negative self-talk is already just like, okay, well, I'm cheating. I'm not a good person. I'm eating bad food. This is bad for me. I must be unworthy. Therefore, I might as well keep eating because I'm a load of junk and I don't deserve good things. So let me just punish myself some more by just like finishing the cake.
Exactly. And that's, it sounds silly when you say, but that's exactly what it is. And we all feel bits and pieces of that to one level or another. But the whole point is thinking about it, become aware of it. And if it's quite a significant aspect, cool. What do we need to do to change it? How can we change behavior? How can we kind of influence this so that we take some steps forward? Lisa says she takes a few deep breaths, getting back to her earlier one. So when she takes that moment, so particularly when she's in front of the fridge or something. Okay. So it's just taking a moment to think.
Yeah, good. Reflections, introspection.
Exactly.
And Adrian, I see that we are finishing off, and I just want to sort of make one more comment about why eating plans that are put together at Jeff, why I believe so much in them, having said all of this and, in giving you this like insight into needing to trust your body, but now we're prescribing these plans. And why it's so important is that it's so important to remember that you reach a point where you actually have no idea what you need. It's very difficult to get back. And when somebody is assisting you and empowering you to do so, it's so important to understand what your body needs based on scientific evidence. So this is the amount of, nourishment you need in order to sustain your movement based on your height, your weight, your age, your job, how much you move in a day, based on your BMR, etc. So by sort of getting to a meal plan that's so free, like the one Jeff would put together for you, you are encouraged to learn about what you need, what you feel like. You're given loads of options. You can have your floating snack. You don't have to have your floating snack. So it's actually teaching you and empowering you to eat mindfully. There's nothing prescriptive about it. But having said that, it is still prescribing what you need so that you're able to learn about that physiological hunger rather than, and that's where mindfulness starts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a tool to sort of overcome what we've created as our new norms. And people come to us because they want to change. And so it's a tool in that, but we've got to be realistic. No one's going to follow meal plans and counting things and whatever forever, but it's a step towards it. And if along the way you aren't learning these other things, you're failing at it and we're failing at it.
It's about empowering our clients. I would absolutely never work somewhere where I didn't feel like clients were learning to eat intuitively. We're being empowered to make decisions for themselves and being empowered to engage with themselves mindfully. So I'm so vehemently pro mindful eating. And I mean, I'm not saying this to sell the product. I'm saying this to tell you why I work here, because I so believe that this is like putting you on that path to the right space.
Magic. And I think that's, if we were going to finish on a note, that would be the one. So, Adi, thanks so much for your time and your amazing kind of insights into this. I think we could chat about it for ages. But if anyone's watching now live or on catch up or whatever, reach out to Coach Adi and pick into that brain. If you want a little bit more info about how and why and what and whatever, that's what we're here for, guys. Just that.
I'd love to hear from anyone and everyone. So please do send me some DMs or whatever. Thanks, cool. Adrian. It was really
enjoy your afternoon. Have a great Friday, and everyone watching, have a great Friday. Come join us tomorrow morning for our silver workout, our warm up. for the Go for Gold next weekend. But make sure you're getting all the work done so you can hit the ground running next week. Everyone who's on the challenges, keep going, guys. 2 weeks down, one more to go. And look forward to catching up with all of you guys next week again. Have a cool one. Have one. Catch up with you guys soon.
Cheers, guys.